we will possibly get started with a quick round of introduction, getting to know each other. You can possibly share a little bit about yourselves, what really got you into the payroll journey, and a quick elevator pitch in terms of if you could summarize a payroll journey in a quick sentence, what would that be like? We'll go around the table with you, Rennie, first.
Hello, I'm Renee. I'm the international payroll manager at Proofpoint. What got me into payroll? Was the first-
Yeah, your
Okay.
journey.
Yes. So started off in payroll. Actually, kind of landed into it. I used to do tax in the U.S. and then shifted into the payroll space doing system implementations, and over time transitioned to working at one of the banks in Belfast, and then I'm now at Proofpoint, so that's been my journey. And a company size, we have about 2,000 employees international that I'm responsible for in 24 countries.
Your elevator pitch. If you were to describe your payroll journey in one single
Roller
sentence.
coaster, roller
Uh,
coaster.
okay. Yeah, Samantha, you.
Yeah, I mean, I thought my journey into payroll was unique, but everyone I speak to within payroll, we've fallen into it. I don't think anyone goes into education going, "I want to be a payroller." But yes, I started in childcare. I then went into sales, HR, and then the company I was working for at the time were expanding quite quickly, and they wanted to get rid of HR. So instead of sacking me, they said, "How about doing payroll?" So that is ultimately how I got into payroll. I did warn him that I didn't do very well in maths before he gave me the job. But I had a desire and actually really, really fell in love with payroll. Then to top that off, I then got involved in global payroll, which then gave me opportunities to travel, but then realized from doing just UK payroll how challenging payroll really was when you certainly got into the EMEA markets. My journey with Neeyamo, very much, I would say, the same as a roller coaster, but the importance of streamlining, de-risking, I think has been, for me, the transformation required.
Paul.
My name's Paul Simpson. I am the Senior Director for Payroll and People Operations at Ralph Lauren. I have been in payroll for over 30 years, and I actually found or discovered payroll when the CIPP formed their organisation. Their leaflet landed on my desk. I was already in a payroll role, and I said, "This is the job for me." So my claim to fame is that I was part of their first graduates for the CIPP exam that they did. So, and it's been payroll all the way ever since.
Cool. So the way we've structured this discussion today is like walking through the journey that you've had as individuals and your transformation journey at an institutional level as well. So before we get into the start, right? What was the trigger in terms of for you to get into a global payroll transformation roadmap? Some of you possibly may have joined the organization a little later, or once the transformation journey is already started. But if you could recollect and share your experience in terms of, what was the trigger point? Why was there a need to embark in a global payroll transformation journey?
I mean, I think for most people, I think the first thing from a business is cost. Um, Looking at running individual contracts when you're in a global company is expensive. The second part is the fact that the risk of having individual local payrolls being processed, those individuals, and it was mentioned earlier that they have their own little way, their own little ways of doing payroll, and they don't like to change things. But then they're the only ones that know how to do it. So if they're suddenly off sick, someone can't just easily come in and pick that up, which is a massive risk because ultimately we need to make sure that we're getting people paid timely and accurately every month. So I think cost is a massive factor for transforming into global payroll, as well as massively de-risking and just centralizing the process. Whilst many countries are very different with their payrolls, ultimately we get input, we get output, we pay people. That's the same. So you can make it consistent, you can simplify it, even the complexities, you can simplify. And I think this is the problem. Too many people try to complicate things that create additional risk. And I think we just try and keep it simple. And I think that's what global payroll does, keep things simple.
Yeah, I would just add to that. Yes, cost is always a massive factor from an employer point of view, but also I think for me it's always been about trying to get a one view payroll, so globalized reporting, for instance, working with your various stakeholders to ensure that you're able to provide a seamless payroll from end to end. And also as a people leader, I look at the opportunity of having a end-to-end payroll view to be able to provide development opportunities for your teams, which is very important if you want to make sure you retain the best talent.
And just to add to that, one of the key factors that we looked at is when we were in 24 countries, we had 24 different payroll vendors, and we've had that from a lot of the other audience members who've spoken. And with this, you are not only the risk of what's happening with those payroll vendors, because one, you don't have access to their systems. A lot of those vendors will be sending you reports via Excel, and you can't really verify, is this actually the final state of that report, or has the report been modified elsewhere? So we needed to internalize the risk and own the risk. And the only way we could do that was move into a global payroll provider where we owned the dashboard and we could work with them in partnership to develop an even better dashboard on how our data looks like. So that's one of the other items.
Yeah, so I think what is the real when it comes to, if somebody had to push a button and say, okay, go ahead. Was there any specific, such a button in place where there was a either mandate from the top, or was it just a, fine, you just wake up one fine day and you say, okay, now it's time to consolidate. How does that, what's your experience like in that?
Because any payroll transformation project is quite expensive, you also had to build a business case and justify why you needed to do the transition. So with that, we were able to get approval from the CFO and also the CEO to start on that payroll journey transformation. And it was important for us to plan it out in a waved approach, so similar to what Unilever is doing, and take a month to look at what were the lessons learned from the first wave, and try not to replicate the same issues as we went into the next waves.
No, any different experiences for you guys?
Sorry,
Any different experiences for you guys?
no, it's pretty much the same for everyone in
Okay.
payroll. I think just building that business case. I think Lara said it earlier during her transformation talk. It's exactly that.
Yeah, what we've generally seen is, mergers, divestitures, acquisitions. They are like some of the key drivers when you undergo that experience. Then you are compelled to embark on that journey. Interesting perspectives, Samantha.
Yeah, we're going through a divestiture, or we've been for a few. And I think when you're using a global payroll system, again, that makes that journey a lot easier, because it's easier to gather the data because it's all there. Transferring the data can be easier. Obviously, there is legal obstacles that you have to come across, but ultimately the data is there, as opposed to if it's not and it's all individual, it's going to take a lot longer, and that can really impact your divestiture and the close. So being able to have that data at your fingertips, and knowing the accuracy of that data as well, because again, something else that can impact a divestiture, I think is key as well.
Got you. Now, just changing gears again, if we were to look at implementations, right? So there's a business trigger. You embark on you identify the need, you start the journey. How does the implementation go about? Like, how do you get about planning? What are the immediate next steps? What are the factors you consider? And what's your experience been like? What are the significant learnings? Some setbacks, anything for our audience to take away from your own experience, rich experiences?
One of the key things, I think, having done a number of implementations over the years now, I think one of the key things to have is just having a clear understanding of your end-to-end process, because you often find with implementations that you'll go off track. But one of the things, as I said, if you have that clear view of your end-to-end process, you don't have to then make decisions on the fly. And is ensuring that you have that end-to-end process for all countries, not just the overall process. So that's one of the things that we've found early on during my implementation transformation journey. Not having that often cause problems and delays in implementations.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think communication and knowledge as well, in terms of the planning stage, is critical. As kind of identified earlier, different countries, you can't just go live with countries whenever you feel like it, because that's the country you feel like transitioning. They all have specific requirements. That you need to follow in terms of regulations, and that can impact a particular month that you go live, or it might be that it's going to cost you more. In the UK, you can just load a year to date figure, easy. In places like Belgium and France, you have to process. So if you're going to go live in a December, you've got to rerun that whole payroll from January right through. You can't just put in a year to date figure. And rerunning that payroll can then be costly depending on who you're going with, because they'll charge you because they are effectively running a payroll again. So there's a number of considerations, and understanding those countries, planning the design to it is critical. But the communication, if you don't have the good communication and the relationship with who you're working with, that will completely fall apart as well. The trust and the confidence in your global payroll provider is key.
And just to add to that, if you're using a HCM system, whether it's Workday or SAP, ensure that before you start your payroll transition, you are utilizing it to the best of its ability. Because if you don't, then literally you're wasting a lot of money. Because if you can integrate, say, your compensation and your bonus files from Workday straight into the payroll vendor, that means that's one less upload your team needs to do. Same with time and things like that. So take that time in the beginning stages to assess where your data points, and are we fully maximizing the systems that we have in place. That will just help make the transition quite smooth as you go forward with the project.
When you know, there's just two critical considerations we generally find customers talking about, right, when they start in any transformation planning. It's one is the head count, the size of the country, and then regional considerations. So would you say these are the two critical factors that drive your implementation strategy? Or if they were your pre-planning considerations uh, during the course of implementation or post implementation, if you were to do things differently, what are the things that you would, what are the parameters you would look at, and how would you do things differently from an implementation standpoint?
I think the key things is also resource availability. Being willing to look at your data and say, how can I simplify it? If we think back to when Workday, for anybody who's a Workday client, when Workday first came into the market and I was at a different company, our data was very complex. And we were told like the only conditions for you to be able to transition to Workday is you have to simplify your data. You don't need 100 cost centers. Is there another way that you can look at your data differently? So if you're not willing to change, guess what? It's going to be garbage in, garbage out. So that's something that everybody needs to be aware of and realize.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that made me think of something actually. I think when I joined Nielsen, they'd already started the implementation with Neeyamo. And what they took is the garbage in from our current vendors and put that into Neeyamo. So again, globally, we've got comes out on our reports, basic pay. Yeah. Well, basic pay is the same in every country, but they've called it something different in every country, which means there is a separate header, a separate potentially GL code for it when it's not necessary. So I think taking the time to globally review your concepts and standardize that where you can. You're always going to have country specifics, but where you can globalize it when it comes to doing internal reporting, accounting, it's going to make life 10 times easier. And to drill down into that data, if you've globalized it and customized it in that respect, makes again life easier. Headcount, I don't ever really consider in terms of planning. It makes no odds, because you can have one person in one country, but that could be the most complex country or individual that has benefits and things. So headcount has never been a concern for me. It's always the regulations internally. Are we at risk with this particular payroll, with this particular country? What's going on with currently who's managing it? Are the employees really unhappy with the payroll in that country? So those are the kind of considerations that I will take into play in looking at planning.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with everything you said there. Standardizing your processes across your payrolls is key. Like I said earlier, that provides development opportunities for your team as well, where they can work across multiple payrolls. Yes, France payroll is calculate the tax may be different from Belgium, but if your processes are the same, you can learn all that stuff anyway. So yeah, I'd agree with it.
Another critical component when it comes to implementation, staying back on the same theme, is change management, right? So when it comes to internal stakeholders resistance, or working, moving to a new way of life, new system, new process, how what kind of hurdles have you encountered, and what are any best practices, learnings you've had in that?
I think someone said it earlier. It's the payroll team that generally are the ones who are most resistant to change. But I think communication is key. I think when you are going on a transformation journey, you need to ensure that all the stakeholders are at the table, all of those conversations are being had, so that you can get that seamless end-to-end process. But I often find that payrollers are just stuck in their ways, want to do the payroll the way they've done it all these years. So they're the ones that are key for that change process, because if they are on board, that your stakeholders will follow.
Yeah. And you will find, as I have on many occasions, you'll have people that will just never change. And and they can cause problems. So then it's managing that. It can lead to people leaving. But ultimately, you've got to have everybody engaged and everybody on board. This is where we're going. It does make sense. It makes sense from a cost perspective. It makes sense from a risk and audit and compliance perspective. Why wouldn't you? I think if you're smaller companies, even when you're smaller, if you've got multiple payrolls, it still makes sense to use this kind of platform, because again, it just de-risks so many things. I'd love to be able to say that I sit here and just tell people to just suck it up. In my head, I'm saying that, but in reality, you have to be a bit more tactful. So then, exactly what Paul said, it's just communication, and having a bit of empathy. You know, they feel that you're trying to change what they're doing because they're doing something wrong. So it's putting yourselves in their shoes and just saying, we're just mixing it up. We're just trying to make everybody's life easier, because that's what ultimately we're doing. It's not the saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I'd love to be able to say I believe in that, and to some degree I do, but actually sometimes it doesn't have to be broken to require it's not so much fixing but just enhancing.
And just to add to that, you can also show them the risk of doing the manual processes. For example, if teams are submitting timesheets manually, there is the risk of duplication. So if it's in the system and you can show them clearly, we can track this from a system perspective, and they're able to understand why it's better to be more automated, that allows you to have more buy-in from them to do that transition over. And at times it might just be putting your foot down and saying, unfortunately, we can't accept any more manual inputs. You really need to use a system that we paying for, which we're paying X amount for.
I think just to add one more point, I think when you tell a story, people will come along with you, and that's I think there's always a way to relay your payroll journey through a story, whether it be costs, whether it be through improvements. So, and I think over time people will move with you.
So two very diverse perspectives, one possibly controversial. uh, you said communication, and I think storytelling. I think selling success stories always sells, right? When you addressing a user's pain point, and if you're able to create stories around that and showcase that, I think that definitely helps. But shove it down throat approach, possibly So is it mostly would you say is it a when you take that approach, is it a top down follow this approach mandate, or is it more consultative?
For me, it's collaboration all the way. I think that's the way you're going to get the most engagement, especially if people are a little bit resistant. So it's just, again, everything for me is communication and building relationships, building trust, building confidence. And as Paul said, if people are kind of believing in you and following your story, you're going to have less resistance. But no, definitely collaborative. I don't like to take that approach. I'm not that kind of manager either. I want to work with individuals, get their input because, and I think someone else said it earlier, I don't know it all, and I'm not going to claim to ever know it all. There's always going to be someone else that knows more or better than me. So, yeah, that's the way I work anyway.
Yeah. Collaboration is key. And as my team often tell me, I'm not doing the work anymore, so I don't know how it goes. So, but yeah, so the collaboration and getting that view from everybody is essential.
Okay. And I know technology has been the key theme of our session today as well. So when you look at adopting technologies, smart tools, how has that really helped you in your transformation journey? What tools, what technologies?
I mean, I'm still working through it. So, I mean, Renee mentioned it earlier. The manual template process is horrible. But the integration is fantastic and does remove that manual effort. It can then reduce resource requirements. So I have a small team because I feel that small team should be able to manage the 42 countries that we have. But under a manual process, that's going to make it very, very difficult. So I think that, um, the importance of changing your strategy on that as well is really key.
We just developed integrations wherever possible. So we've tried to automate as much possible. I believe in a light touch to no touch payroll where possible. So everything that we can, we automate. And that's the way we've run our payroll since we've gone live for the last few years, even down to our data validation and our variance checking. We've adopted some AI technology that's helped us with that data validation, which has seen us streamline a lot of the work that we're doing. So, I think everyone's talking about AI, and if we're not looking to adopt that the opportunities that it brings, then you're going to be left behind at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's about balance though, isn't it? I think that AI is going to be great, it's going to be helpful, but you can't take away that person aspect, that empathy when employees are raising queries or concerned, or when something goes wrong and you need an immediate assistance. AI is not going to be able to help make you feel that everything's okay and it's going to be resolved. So I think that it's that balance that global vendors are definitely going to have to take forward. It's great for validation and input and transferring data, but I think when it comes to the employee level or situations where something's gone wrong on the payroll, you need to have that person there to hear you, even if it's just to vent the frustration. But AI is not gonna, that'll probably just annoy me even more.
Payroll's always going to be about people.
Absolutely.
That's 100%. But I think AI will help improve.
Yeah.
I think Nick did a presentation that I saw the other day that there's going to be new jobs. Some of the transactional jobs will disappear, but there will be new job titles we've never even heard of. When I started in payroll, there wasn't even a payroll director. So there will be new job titles that we haven't heard of or that we don't know today, and that will be from the advent of AI.
Absolutely. And just to add to it, when I think about the AI journey, it's moving payroll from being more reactive to be more proactive with how they deal with different things. And I think one thing we all are aware of, yes, we can have AI in our day to day, but then we also need to have that human logic until we can get our systems into a much better space. To understand, like, has it translated the requirements as needed, or is there more to it? So for example, when I'm using AI to research labor laws or whatever, I'm always asking, give me the link to that government site, let me go and read it myself in case you've misinterpreted it. But it's made my life easier in terms of research because I'm not trying to figure out in France what website do I need to go to. So
So I think we briefly touched upon all the three tracks. I thought we should talk about the platform, core platform, the integration, and of course, no technology conversation happens without talking about AI. So you brought it up, uh, Paul. So just to wrap up this session now, if you were to, I was just thinking about, if you were to paint a vision of your global payroll, the destination for your global payroll, it's such a dynamic world, and if you were to look at 2 years, possibly you will be crowded by what's happening on the ground today. But if you were to paint a picture, maybe 5 years down the lane, if you were to look at your global payroll, the journey you've started today, if you were to look at the destination, um, 5 years from now, what would it look like? We'll start with you, Paul.
That's a good question. Well, I've personally long been an advocate of on-demand pay. I think that's something that I've worked with our payroll provider to produce an on-demand pay. I think, as I said earlier, payroll will always be about people, and that employee experience is important. I believe that 5 years from now, that's how everyone will be paid. And if you're not offering that service, then you're going to be left behind. So I think that will be a key part of payroll. What I would like to see, I guess, is an on-cloud payroll system that provides a single source payroll engine for all countries, all currencies, compliance. Yeah, that would be what I would be looking for in the next 5 years. And also all the different employment types, from gig workers, contractors, full-time, part-time, whatever.
Especially because you brought this concept of on-demand pay. Now is earned wage access. Do you see that a global evolving as a global phenomena, or would it be on certain geographies, certain role types?
For me, it's going to be the employee experience. I think, like as I said, if you're not offering it, I've in my company, we have people already at the recruitment stage saying, "Do you offer this as a benefit?" So, I think if you're going to want to attract and retain the best talent going forward, you're going to have to offer it. And I think it will just be part of the way payroll evolves in years from now.
Yeah.
Samantha, you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with Paul. I mean, I think for me personally, it's it's about getting those payrolls, the processing down. As at the minute, generally, I think for most people in global payroll know that it's about 3 weeks from start to finish where you have to ask for your input to come through, to when you actually get paid, and then you have employees saying, well, how come it's taking a month to get my overtime? And it's not, essentially that's what it is, but to them, it absolutely looks that way. So with integrations, with AI, with that one-touch demand payroll, getting that down to like a week, which I'm doing with South Africa actually. But it just shows it's possible. But to be able to do that for every single, semi-monthly payrolls as well. Again, the stress on the team trying to give them more than one country, and if they're all semi-monthly payrolls, they don't stop. So making them shorter cycles, but getting all of that in would be, for me, really key.
And just to add to that, I think what I would love to see is more governments adopting technology and streamlining what they expect from the companies as a report back, because that will only help us simplify our payroll processes. Because as long as you have clunky governments, you have to feed in to their clunky systems, and you'll never be able to fully automate. So, lobbying.
We're right at 5 o'clock. Just to wrap up, if you were to leave our audience with a single line of knowledge, what would that be?
Don't be scared of change. Change happens.
I don't even know. Good luck.
Yeah, I would say the same. Just embrace the change. As I mentioned at the beginning, I've been in payroll for many years. I've seen all sorts of changes. As I mentioned, there wasn't even a payroll director when I joined, when I started in the payroll industry. Now they're everywhere. So change happens. Just embrace it and enjoy the journey.
Well, that's it. Thank you, Paul, Samantha, and Renee. Thank you for your time. You guys are the real payroll heroes.